everybody, I'm Tom Vasel. Welcome as we back to the Dice Tower as we continue going through the X-Men United villains. The villains. Wah! So today we're taking a look at every villain in today's list. And I think we're going from 19 to 12. Every villain in today's list, I will gladly play against them. Well, maybe not gladly because they're kicking my butt. But we have some very interesting ones. But I enjoyed my fights. I did not beat all of these villains, but I enjoyed the fights against them tremendously. I think they're fantastic. They're not in my top 11. We got 2 more videos coming where we'll talk about those. But they're still pretty good, so let's get started. So first today, we're going to take a look at Callisto. Now, Callisto has some similarities to Marrow, which we're going to show a little bit later. But Callisto here has the Morlock tunnels, locations she's going to keep jumping to. She's kind of a hit and run. You know, I talked earlier about, in previous ones, about I'm not a huge fan of the Sabretooth and Lady Deathstrike, the hunting you. I don't mind so much me hunting them. She comes with Caliban, who I wish was a hero in the game or a villain, both of them, and Marrow and Mask. And all 3 of them are going to be doing damage to you. And they can come back. When a hero's KO'd, one of these threat cards will come back, which is kind of a pain in the neck. Other than that, though, like all her cards, she's just jumping around, dropping people, hitting and running. So she's not a particularly difficult person to play against, or even to figure out. I guess there's not a lot of special rules, but sometimes that's all you want to see in a villain, and I like playing against her. So of the characters in the core box, Mystique is my favorite one to play against. Now, I've talked about hunting the characters. That's what Sabretooth does. Mystique hunts Senator Kelly. He's this token here, who will start with the heroes. But the reason I like him is this is like a protect mission. You got to protect Senator Kelly. Now, it could be a pain. You got Pyro, Toad, Destiny, and Avalanche. I told you the guy was a thug. Anyhow, these guys are all out there. You got to fight them. And then you got some, as long as there's threats in play, damage to Mystique goes to one of her henchmen. I'm okay with that. You know, it does help clear them out. But she's adding different people here. And many times, her ability, she's just going to move to Senator Kelly's location and then do 2 damage to a hero there. If there's no hero there, you just lost the game. But the heroes can move Senator Kelly with them. They can take damage instead of him. But if anyone ever does a damage to a hero, and Senator Kelly's by himself, you lose. And I like that. You're passing a football around. Poor Senator Kelly. But that's just, to me, it's an interesting way to play. It's of the 3 in the base set, it's my favorite. I think Magneto is the best one for people to play for the first time. And Sabretooth's not particularly hard to figure out. But Mystique just feels different. And even not many of the other ones that have come are as interesting as this one. I like the idea of protecting someone. And then I'm also a big fan of villains that come with both the henchmen and other things to do, which gives you more variety when you're going out there. So this is a fun one to play against. Now, we've already talked about a villain who can turn, is trying to fill the board with thugs. Deathbird is not too far off from that herself. You don't want locations that have more thugs than civilians. If that happens, a crisis token's placed there. But the crisis token goes away if there's more civilians than thugs. 5 locations have a crisis token, everybody loses. But you can use a heroic token to add a civilian to your location, which can lead to the weird thing of using one to add a civilian, then you're using another one to rescue them. You're like, run in that room. I'll protect you. She has 1 henchman, the very underrated, or overrated, I guess, Vulcan. I was surprised Vulcan himself was not one of the main characters. But hey, Vulcan works with Deathbird, and he does damage. And then you have just different things that are going to drop them, especially these these Shar Elite Warriors. These are usually the first things we got to get rid of. Get rid of these because having the thugs require 2 damage to be defeated are a real pain in the neck. But then the thugs are dropping off in other locations. She does damage with her javelins, everyone, and then BAMs, where she does 2 damage, and then turns civilians into thugs. I don't know. I find this one interesting. Again, it's kind of a race, and it feels like a tug of war back and forth. Civilians versus thugs. I enjoy it. With Marrow, you have to play with the Morlock tunnels. That's where she's going to start. And you ever lose if there's an overflow there. Now, Marrow is the very definition of you hunting the villain, because you're trying to chase Marrow down. Now, she is kind of, if you look at her heroes, she is kind of the same thing. She has dual hearts and bone armor. Bone armor is annoying because when you do damage to her, it takes damage back to you. But also they're fun to get rid of because they take 2 heroics in a fight to get rid of them. Dual hearts, if they're face up, when she's defeated, she comes back with starting health. And then you turn both dual hearts. So there's 2 of them. So this is kind of interesting. When they both show up, when she's defeated, she's going to come back. So you either have to beat her quickly before they both show up, or if they both show up, just realize you're going to have to hit her twice. And she's constantly moving. When a hero's KO'd, we just add someone to the Morlock tunnels, and she's going to be constantly running around, recovering health, and random threat cards can come in back and play. So just interesting to me. You're just trying to kill her as fast as you can. And I don't know, this dual hearts thing I find, I mean, it's not fun when it happens, but it's just an interesting thing and makes her feel not invulnerable, but like, oh, we got to get her again. It's like when the boss stands up and you have to fight phase 2 in a video game. In the comic books, the Shadow King is a weak guy in real life, but in the shadow, in your mind, he's a very strong telepath, even taking on Professor Xavier. For some reason, he likes to wear this very ugly outfit. I mean, well, anyway. Well, the outfit's cool, but he's kind of ugly. Anyhow, so what is he trying to do? He is trying to, well, attack everyone, add things. But if you start with crisis tokens, and every time he bams, he's going to give you crisis tokens, you attack each other. Either you're going to, if there's someone else there, you attack them and they take a damage. And if there's no one else there, you have to ignore an action symbol at the bottom of the hero cards on your turn, which is kind of a pain in the neck. Then you get rid of these crisis tokens. So crisis tokens are a pain. So you're like, do we split up or do we hit each other? And I'm always finding this card is fascinating because he switches spots with you, the next person who's going to play, and then gives him 2 crisis tokens. So he's like jumping around the board. He like takes possession of you. And then over here, if you start in locations, you ignore action symbols. If you start here, you get rid of an action token. Not so bad. You just make sure you don't have any action tokens. And here, if you start in this location, you can't damage the Shadow King. Then you add in the fact of his health, which is 5, 8, 13. That's a lot. He's a tough bird, but he's interesting. I find it, especially when he switches. And once you know his patterns, I think has some stronger patterns than some of the others with the way he moves and switches plays. You can prepare from like, yeah, switch plays with Archangel. I got Wolverine right here, ready for you. I don't know. I think he's very interesting and fun to play. That's the Shadow King. Mojo is one of the most unique villains in the game. Also, one of the most disgusting villains. So if you don't know anything about Mojo, he has his own universe where he basically runs a TV station and he brings heroes and villains on to fight each other, although he is a villain. And so the more you do, he's trying to get his ratings up to 15 here, and which will win him the game. The heroes will lose. It starts at 5. Heroes can forfeit actions to move this down because essentially they're not doing anything. And the farther down this is, the more damage they can do to Mojo, who is a 5, 8, 11. Pretty tough. What Mojo starts with are these hostage tokens. They're in each location. You can spend a heroic action to free them. In fact, you have to free all the hostages before you can even go after Mojo. But they do give you a token when you flip them over. And so we got just 2 moves, 2 attacks, and 2 heroic tokens on them. But I find that to be a fun thing to do. I find it fun to flip over the tokens and get something. Yes, it's an extra action, but you're spending a heroic action to get another action, maybe even if it's a heroic action. And so then Mojo himself comes with these werewolves who are doing damage to Major Domo, who's adding stuff, and he can't be damaged by attacking. You have to use heroic to take him out. And Spyro, who's a hero/villain herself. And you might notice we haven't got there yet. Mojo's cards are all special kinds of cards. There's not a lot of basic cards here, but he will be adding civilians to every location. He needs an audience, challenge, thugs to every location. He has 2 of each of those. And he makes you ignore things, cancels special abilities, turns civilians into thugs, ignoring actions. If the Major Domo threat's not there, you accelerate the next turn by 1 card. So knowing this is in the game is helpful because then you know Major Domo is one of the first people that you want to take out. And I find this fun. There's like seesaw keeping this threat up here. I think it works really well with the Mojo theme. The hostage tokens are fun. This is a really cool villain to fight and feels different than stuff out there. Also, if you play him, you may start in the Mojo verse, which if you perform, this makes him -2 health. but gives you a negative token, a negative thing here. If you do 3 or more actions this turn, you get a wild token. If you don't, you discard a deck. So it's kind of interesting to use this. The problem is this doesn't come in the same box as Mojo, which I found to be a weird thing. This comes in the X-Men Blue Team box. So, and he comes in the stretch goal box, but whatever. You don't have to have it. It doesn't affect the game that much. Sometimes I just want to fight. The Silver Samurai is here to oblige. That's why I like playing against him. So he takes 2 cards from the bottom of your deck and removes them from the game if he KOs you. So that's deadly and dangerous, and it kind of keeps you on your toes. And he does lots of damage as long as he moves through your thing, and he's going to be moving all over the place. But what I find interesting are these dual cards. When he moves to somebody and they reveal their hand, if you don't have at least 2 fighting at the bottom of your cards, you discard all your cards to the bottom of your deck. He wins the duel. That's bad for you. I'll tell you what, when I play against him, he's one of the few times where I'm like, you know what, let's go, let's fight. I'm bringing Wolverine and Colossus and the Thing, and we're going up against the Silver Samurai. And I don't feel bad about that. You still have to be careful because you need to finish these, because these are adding thugs to different locations. His BAM will do extra damage with the dojo, and then these annoying veterans here require 2 to be defeated. He's very straightforward, but he's fun. I also like his miniature. I like the Silver Samurai, except for that abominable one in the movie. But other than that, it's neat, and he has these duels, and there's, I think, 4 of them in the deck, and he's always coming after you. So in some sense, people are like, why do you like him and not the Juggernaut? There's some similar, there seems like there's more nuance with the Silver Samurai. The Juggernaut just runs around and hits everybody. The Silver Samurai, you can prep a little bit more for, and I think that's why I enjoy him. Emma Frost here, who is not quite in the top 10, but I like playing against her. One of the things I like is she has these illusionary enemies. Illusionary Sabretooth, and illusionary Sebastian Shaw, illusionary Magic. And when you fight these people, you can also use heroic tokens to attack him. So I don't mind that. It's like, yeah, I'm throwing attack at them, I'm throwing illusion at them. That's kind of fun. However, at the end of your turn, if there are more crisis tokens on this board, or if there's equal to or greater number of heroes, we draw a master plan card and throw it in the storyline and then remove crisis tokens. And you can play your card randomly to get rid of a crisis token there, which occasionally I do if I think all my cards are pretty decent and I don't mind which one I'm going to play. BAM's put crisis tokens on here for each hero that's in her location, so you're trying to avoid her for the first half of the game, but she's chasing you down. She will occasionally erase all your special cards on your turns, and then just basically moving to where you're at. She's going to move there and put crisis tokens on. So you want to split up when you're fighting her. And I don't know, I like her because she's interesting to fight. She's pretty, has some decent hit points, 5, 8, 10. She has these illusionary people, which you can fight with multiple things. So if you have fighting characters and heroic characters, everyone gets a chance to be a star when going up against her. And once again, the Avengers probably have an easier chance because they have fewer special abilities against her. But I still find her to be a lot of fun. That's Emma Frost. Well, there you have it, folks. 8 more villains. We got 11 to go. I'll be splitting those into 2 videos, 6, and then the top 5. But again, any of these I would gladly play against. They're all fun. They're interesting. And I feel like each of these has a very distinct taste, with the exception, I think, that Callisto and Marrow are a little similar to play against. But I like them both so much. I like that style of playing. So that's it for today, folks. We got more X-Men United content coming your way. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.